2016, 2017, when we started talking about building the library and the village hall and doing all these park projects. This type of modeling that Dave is presenting tonight is what we were talking about back then. We knew when you added all these projects together, it was going to have a major impact on our debt service. And I just want to thank Dave for really coming up with a great model that now we can talk to the board about and come up with a policy. And then the second thing is I just want to tell the board, do not panic. We're going to go through some numbers and just don't panic. We'll figure a way to get through this. This is a great first step. So just kind of start with the first step, and then we'll finish with the last step at some point in the future. But do not panic as we go through this, please. Thank you.
To the public too.
And to the public too. That's correct. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, Dave. I'm ready. You ready?
So did you want me to share my screen, or do you want me to just tell you to move to the next page?
Elise can probably just do this for
okay.
us, right? Okay.
So this is actually kind of pieces of the overall financial management plan that I would do. And when Mike and Lisa and I kind of talked the first time, I had just got done presenting to the city council in Stoughton, and I told them it took about an hour and 5 minutes. And I believe both of them kind of went, no, we don't want to listen to you that long. So what we decided to do is kind of bite off the plan in a couple pieces. We'll get some direction from you probably each time. And in the end, we'll have the full document put together at that point, but you won't have to listen to me for a full hour at a time. So hopefully you'll bear with me for whatever amount of time it takes me tonight. The very first graphs are some things that I put together, and basically Stoughton is helpful in having their meeting first. This is something I actually came up for your presentation, but since we did it later than I expected, I ended up getting to try it out on Stoughton first. And this is just one page of Moody's framework when it comes to the rating. What I think you're going to find in the way that I've kind of developed the financial management presentations is really looking at how do we go forward and make sure that we're putting the village on a road to good financial health, keep our bond rating, and not have things occur that hurt that or make Moody's want to look negatively on you. So this is pretty much the last slide of the Moody's information, because we're just talking about debt related or debt capacity related things. So there's a couple things on here that aren't really relevant tonight, except that we probably won't touch on them on the last night either with the pension stuff. That's more of a thing that Moody's pulls together. But when you talk about the net direct debt to full value, that's really your debt limit calculation. And as you can see, the lower amount of the shorter the bar, the better off you are. So as far as the Village of Oregon, you're a AA on this particular item. Your debt capacity is just a little bit north of 1.5%, and the state statutes say that you can use 5% of your equalized value. So you're well below quite a few places, and so that's a good sign of health, is that you're that low as far as your percentage. That's really, I'll just focus on that one on this graph or on this table, because that's really one that we're going to talk about tonight. So if you want to forward to the next slide. So the model that we put together is based on equalized value. And equalized value is really a way for us to look at the village on an annual basis and be apples to apples. As you know, the assessed value doesn't really go up and down unless you have a revaluation of your assessments. So that kind of ends up falling out of pace with the equalized value, which is the market value of all your taxable property in the village. So just to give comparability, we use equalized value. As we presented for debt issuance or any kind of capital plans that I've done the last couple of years, we've kind of have a very conservative growth percentage. Right now we're using about 2% from 2021 to 2029, and about 1% after that. Plus there's some projected TID closures in the mix of some of these numbers. But I think, as far as the numbers go for, let me see, do I have that opened up? I was going to say your percentage of growth is extremely great right now. You've had some really nice growth, and I wanted to bring that up just so that I can tell you where we're at here. Of course, it's going to go slow. So really, over the last couple of years, you've averaged the TID-in value, which is all the properties. You've averaged almost 7% over the last 5 years. So we're really using some conservative numbers. So really, when we talk about some of these things, one of the things that will make some of these scenarios look better is if we were more aggressive with our growth values. So there's a way for us to kind of show you what the changes are, and if I am able to share my screen, there is a way for you to see kind of how that changes. But if not, you'll have to take me for granted on that. Next slide, please. So the model that we've built so far is the capital improvement plan that you've approved recently. It's a pretty aggressive schedule. You have a lot of big buildings in there. You have some big park projects, and really there's it's a lot of debt to take on in a short period of time. So what we try to do is come up with what can we do to really not destroy the debt capacity that you have. So what we try to do with the plan is to stabilize the tax rate and stabilize the use of the debt limit. And so we're going to basically focus all on the debt limit tonight. So one of the things that we try to do, so the line that last line in that slide is covered up by pictures. So one of the things that we would like to do is kind of talk about debt policies, and debt capacity is one which the village does not have a policy for. So this is a great opportunity for us to kind of visit all of those things. And once we get the policies developed, it'll basically steer the plan on what will fit for capital projects and how it'll affect your tax rate. And you'll be able to see when you get your CIP in front of you that you'll be able to determine whether it's really a doable CIP. Next slide, please. This is super tiny. In fact, I need to take off my glasses so I can read it. Let's see if I can get rid of these bookmarks over here. Oh, no. So starting on the left side, really is, this is your base plan. So this is where we are after we got done doing the 2020 borrowing. We've got the general obligation debt that's due this year. We've got some fees. And then there's revenues that go against, or other funding sources that go against those payments. As we talked about when we did the borrowing, the underwriters like to try to make their bonds more saleable. So the bid premiums are something that we're seeing in this environment. Then we've got districts or TIF districts that pay for some of the debt. The water and sewer pay for the debt. The fire districts, one of your developers, and then impact fees are some of the biggest funding sources that pay for the debt payments outside of the levy. When we get over just to the right of the total amounts that get applied against that total principal and interest that we have each year, we get down to how much the levy is. And so as you kind of look at this, and I'll key in on the tax rate because that's where we kind of show how flexible you are, is that we're about $1.20 equalized value on your current debt for 2020. Based on the 2020 borrowing, we went up to about $1.28. And then we start to come down each year. And then there's enough of a gap between each year that we're able to structure your debt to fit this model and continue to have that stabilized debt. If you look at the change in value, like I talked about before, you can see the 2% growth. And then there's a couple sprinkled in 4%ers where we're kind of projecting where there's maybe some potential TID closures. And we tried to use that growth in the model to kind of smooth out some of the debt payments and the impact of the taxpayer. So this is kind of your base plan. This is where we are before you start taking on the CIP. Next page, please. If anybody has a question, feel free to interrupt me too. So the one thing that we're going to talk about tonight is policies. The first kind of policies that are fairly common is the debt limit. How much of your state statutory limit should you want to use? When we're talking to most places, 75% is basically the top end that we like to see anybody use. And the reason being is because you want to reserve some of that for some emergency purposes. And so when we're talking to clients, we're saying, don't exceed the 75% line because you may need it. As far as what's a normal policy around the area, I do see, I think Stoughton has an 80% policy. We have been talking to them about that, but your Fitchburgs, your Wanakees are more at a 50%. So 2.5% of the 5% that the state lets you have. So we're one of the things we'd like to talk about tonight and have the board give us some guidance on is what would be an acceptable policy for a debt limit. And we'll go through some scenarios and then that'll hopefully lead to some discussion on that. The next policy that we will talk about, which we'll actually come back to the village board with after we have the debt capacity policy figured out, is a tax rate policy, because you're gonna say, okay, we aren't gonna go above, let's say 50%. And so then we're gonna structure the plan for the tax rate to stay below that 50%. And then it's kind of a matter, okay, how much of your levy, your mill rate, do you want to pay for debt? And so common ones like Fitchburg and Awanakee, their top end is $2.25, but I can tell you that both of those places are well below that $2.25. But that's what your bigger growing communities are using as a cap. So they never want to be above that for their mill rate. Next slide, please. So we're going to give you an example of what the CIP looks like in a couple different snapshots. And as I say on here, and I'll be pretty blunt about this scenario is one that you will not want to take ever. So we're gonna show you the worst case scenario of what the CIP looks like if we use all general obligation debt. So if you could go to the next slide. You can see that we almost hit 100% of the debt capacity. So the top of the blue is the state statutes, and the red is where the 50% line is. Or the 75%, depending on which ones. I wanted to give you kind of a, what one looks like compared to the other. And then the green is how much debt you have. Now, I've had clients tell me that I should flip-flop the red and the green because the red should be seen as bad when you go above that line. But you're getting the red being a better line than the green tonight. So I can switch that if anybody feels strongly about it. But so what is included in this scenario is, you've got all the buildings that you're discussing, but you also have some pretty significant utility projects that are in this, one being a wastewater treatment plant expansion or upgrade. And that is some pretty significant dollars. I think it's like $10 to $11 million worth of projects. And you can tell that there's just, it isn't worth using all your capacity up on a utility when you have other potential bonding sources that you can use, such as revenue bonds. So as you can see, we're at about 90, it's pretty close to 90% on this scenario. So, but we wanted to show you the all-in just so that you know that we aren't recommending that you use general obligation debt to do all of your projects in the CIP. If you could go to the next slide. So our first fix that we wanted to show is what happens if we take years where there's bigger utility projects and we use revenue bonds to fund those instead. Now, revenue bonds have a little bit higher interest rate. They're a little more risky. They're not backed by the tax levy. They're backed by the user fees of the utilities. There's also some things that are some reserves you have to have on place. So there's a little bit more complexity to them, but they're not really difficult. They're not a lot more difficult than geo debt, but like I said, the interest rate's just a little bit higher than you would get on a regular general obligation. So in this version, we have years where we are still using general obligation to fund some of the smaller utility stuff, But in the years where we have bigger projects, there's a couple years where there's the $2 million type projects in the utilities for each utility, and then there's that big year where the sewer utility really hits and knocks us up the ladder on the debt capacity. So it does. This version does create a little bit of stress on the 75% line, and the other thing. We're also going to show a little bit about how the tax rate on this version goes as well. We didn't do a lot of structuring of those payments, so there's probably a different look when we actually do the structuring of the tax rate, but we'll show you what it looks like just based on the kind of, it'll look like bouncing up until we get to the top of at the end of the project. So if you want to go on to the next slide. So, on the 50% version, we can't stay under that. We can't do all the projects that we have. So we've got 3 buildings and a fairly large park project. And by the time we get to the end of the 5 years, we have topped out somewhere a little lower than 75%. So if you have 75% policy, you can just kind of stay under it. But if you're in the 50%, then you're still climbing. But as you can see, each year we're really adding on quite a bit of usage of the debt capacity. And then the last scenario, what we did is, I'm ahead of myself. So the last slide is kind of like I said, we didn't structure it. And so what I did is kind of did a level principal and interest on each year. The purpose of tonight was more about the debt capacity, but if we just said, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to pay the same principal interest each year, then we have this bounce up until you really spike up to about, almost $3 per thousand of your, the mill rate is $3 per thousand. So, you're paying $300 on a $100,000 house, and you're coming up from paying more like $120. So it's quite a jump by the time you finish 5 years using this method. Like I said, when we get the debt capacity figured out, we will structure the debt in such a way that we'll get to a point that maybe meets the tax rate policy or something that we think is a good tax rate policy, and then we'll try to level that off or maybe decline a little bit, especially after the 5 years of projects, so that you have flexibility for those future projects as well. So this is not how the tax levy graph will look when we actually get to that part of the financial management plan, but it does show you that to fit the projects all in, you're going to take some big jumps because they're big projects each year. And then the next policy or the next scenario is where we decided to kind of say, okay, if we were going to make a 50% policy, what would we need to do? And so the next sheet is the sizing sheet, which you typically see. If you could go on one more slide. So this is usually what you see. You usually see those first 2 yellow columns when we come out to do the borrowing presentations. And so what we did is we're like, okay, we want to try to we're just going to demonstrate tonight what we need to do if we were to approve a 50% policy. And as you can tell, 21, 22, you can fit in what you have planned in your CIP right now and stay below the 50% mark. But once we get to 2023 and beyond, we have to cut some fairly significant costs out, including basically the entire 2024 building, which I believe is the Village Hall, to actually make this fit to 50%. So there's some real struggle with being able to fit the entire CIP plan if we were to have a 50% policy. We didn't go after what the 75% would look like, or did I do that for you, Mike? Did we do that one?
Just 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can tell, when you're doing your capital improvement plans, typically what I would do when I was a finance director in Wanakee is we actually would bring something that fit our policies. And so I think once we get in place what your policies are, maybe that CIP that you see at approval time fits those policies, or gives you the chance to see what doesn't, and gives you the chance to move around projects and prioritize which ones you think should be done first. So this kind of will be a tool in the future to give yourselves a way to manipulate when things get done, and decide which things are more of a priority. So at this point, you're kind of seeing, we don't have policies really in place. So what do we need to do to make those policies? So as you can tell, we have to cut some significant dollars. And as we go on to the next schedule, if we do that, if we were to cut those, or we were to push projects off to future years, we can make a 50% policy. But like I said, I mean, you're then looking at, okay, when are we going to do a village hall? When does it fit? And I'll do a, for instance, when Wanakee did their community center, we went over our state statutory self-imposed limit of 50%. And I complained quite a bit for many years until they realized that that was a big deal, and that could affect how Moody's really saw us. And so when they decided to do their library, they made sure that they were going to stay under. So that's kind of how you would probably go forward with, okay, you prioritize what you want to do, and then you try to see where you can fit those in to stay within your policy. So, you know, if you're doing a 50% policy, some of those projects are going to have to be pushed out into the future, or just reorganized so that they fit. So as you can see, under the 50% policy, with this kind of a making it work, you fit, and if you had a 75% policy, you'd have a little more room to fit some projects in. So some of the action items that we want to talk about, and I think, you know, I think we did mess around a little bit with the debt capacity. If I remember, Mike, there's something that we did.
Oh, you you just increased the value, the annual. You went from, like, I think you used 4% to show that it helps us in those tough years.
Yeah, and I just opened up one, and it wasn't the one we did when we were talking, so I got to make sure I got the right one here.
Yeah.
So what we want to have the board consider tonight is, you know, is there a debt capacity number that you would feel good with? You know, obviously you have a lot of, you're a growing community, you have a lot of projects that have either been put off, or maybe, you know, it just now it's starting, they just all of a sudden are there, and you have these big things to consider. You know, it's the time where now we've got to kind of figure out how we're going to fit it without it hurting our financial standing with Moody's. You know, one thing that'll come out of this when you're thinking about this, and we're not, you know, we don't necessarily need you to tell us the number tonight, but, you know, what policy or what projects should we think about maneuvering around? You know, are there ones that you want to prioritize? You know, once we have that debt policy kind of put into place, then what we'll do is we'll come back with a demonstration of how the tax rate is affected by that, and show you what you could do with the tax rate. Does it fit under a tax rate that you're palatable to, or is there things that we need to do yet to maneuver the projects around to fit within something that a tax rate increase that you're willing to take to the public?
Dave, do you have that model that you did where?
Yeah,
I think it'd be good for the board to, and that's why I was joking. I never wasn't joking at the beginning about not panicking, because I sort of thought about this over the weekend, that, one of the reasons why we're doing all these projects is that we're a growing community. Mm-hmm. And so when you do these modeling, Elders has always done very conservative modeling, but then in reality, as we go forward, hopefully, because we're a growing community and we're doing these projects, we have the growth to help cover some of the debt. And I think that's what's going to happen. Unless we go into a deep post-COVID recession, which I hope isn't the case. But I think that would help us get through some of those challenging years, 25 and 26, for example. So
yeah. Did you want to let me share my screen?
Yeah.
Is that something that I can do already?
Yeah, Lisa,
You
can you
can
do
do
that,
one
please?
second. I just need to change one
I
permission.
gotta figure out where I'm at. Okay.
So I'm gonna stop sharing and then you should be able to
Okay.
share, Dave.
Let's see here. There it is. And let's do this one. Oh my gosh. One spreadsheet came up in the way and I just hit save and it takes forever. Go away. There we go. All right. So this is the model that we worked on the other day. And these are the numbers that we kind of showed you that we would have to maneuver around. And I'm trying to think, Mike, was this version something where we were doing more of the 75%?
I thought we were shooting for 50%. I mean,
Let me see what that did though.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what that number meant. Maybe that was after maybe that's the numbers after we moved the growth percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we did is we went, okay, if we had a 4% growth.
Yep.
And then we went back here, you know, what would we be able to do? How much would we have to do compared to the other one to fit that 50%?
Yeah. So do you go, yeah.
Yep, there it is. So what I just did, let me show you what the old version was. We had, so we have to move about $15 million worth of projects around to try to fit.
Yeah.
If we were to go from 2% growth to 4% growth, then I'm only really working with about 11 million. So, you know, there you got about $4 million of difference just because of growth.
I mean, 24 is still challenging, but at least in 23, you're going from 3 to looking for $1 million savings, right? When you have the higher growth, yeah.
Yep. So it's about a $2 million change on 2023.
Which is a big deal, yeah, when you're doing these, yeah.
So, and just to see it more visually, that, you know, that basically fits your 50% if that was the policy, so.
Yeah.
Yes, Jenna, go ahead.
Remind me what our average growth has been. I know you said it previously and I forgot to write it down.
6.95%.
Thank you.
But I think this year, or I think for 20 going into 21, it's like 5.8, so almost about 6%.
Thank you.
And traditionally we've modeled it at what percent?
2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dave can explain
That's like
better.
worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, you
for
got
Dane County.
you're assuming, you know, that you don't want to be doing something where you're doing it at 7 or 8% and then you hit a
Yeah.
recession and your whole modeling. So it's better to have bad news and then have the good news come up and go, oh wow, we're actually in pretty good shape. So
And you know, really when you're doing your CIP, you're probably more realistic about what next year looks like than you are about 4 years from now. And so, you know, we will update this every year, and it could be that we end up fitting a lot of things in, especially if you continue to have 6 to 7% growth.
Right.
You know, a lot of things could fit, but you know, the other thing is what if we hit a 2008 as well? So, you know, we don't want to go gung ho and say we're doing this without really taking a look and making sure that we aren't shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yes, Amanda.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does Moody's have a set debt percentage that they want us to stay within before our credit rating will change?
Well, based on the graph that I had before, and maybe that's not one I've got open. So is there anything else we need to show them out of my spreadsheet? At least, do you want to?
I just wanted you to just show that if you add a little bit of.
I can bring it back if we need to, but I'll stop if Elise wants to go back to that graph.
It was the first one.
Yeah.
That you're asking for.
Yeah.
When it shows the debt and pension. Yeah, so it's page 1, Elise. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at where Stoughton is, you know, they're above 2.5%. They're, you know, like I said, their policy is closer to 80%, but they're under that right now. And they're only an A rating on this level. So up here, like, I don't have the mouse, but yeah, that graph there, you can see your comparable municipalities to you that are at A versus AA. So you're more at 1.5%, but even who's that? That's Wanakee is only an A, which is, you know, to me that's surprising. But they must be getting too close to the 2%, and that's what knocked them down.
So that's just based on what percent of debt they have. Is it based at all on whether or not the community has a self-imposed debt limit that they're exceeding? Do they look at that at all?
It does not appear that is, you know, it's something that it's good that you stick to it. But, you know, it looks to me that even if you have a self-imposed for, you know, the purpose of this, that it doesn't, you know, when they're comparing you to other places, that it's more on what the median is for that AA2 group that you're in right now.
Okay, and then another question too, for the self-imposed limit, is that effective? I mean, in that, you know, we now, this board could impose that, and we think, oh, this is a good idea, and it might encourage future boards to not exceed it, but it doesn't stop them, right? They could still vote to exceed it in the future.
As you know from anything, that you don't tie the hands of a future board. So, you know, I think it's up to the Mike and the Lisa to really preach the reasoning why you would stay at a certain amount. And it's not to say, you know, especially with you growing, I don't think that 50% is something that you would necessarily take on right now, because you do have a lot of projects you want to do. So, you know, can you be at a level where your debt doesn't climb really fast though, because the debt burden, that's why some of these I think are at A, is because they have a lot of new debt coming on. And when that new debt comes on, that negative trend in the line is what Moody's really hangs their hat on.
Amanda, the best example is that many years ago, the board established the fund balance policy. And I mean, that goes back 15 plus years, and every board's followed that. I think once you get it in place and you realize it's really good for your budget and your rating and all that, most boards will just continue the policy.
Here's the funny thing about fund balance policies though, is that if you're above your policy and you use some of it and you're still above your policy, Moody's dings you for trends. So if you go down, even though you're above your policy, you can get a negative or a weakened look because you went down. So sometimes you just can't win. Yeah. But I think, you know, the more we show them that we're controlling what we're doing, and the more we show them our plan, like when this gets done, this is going to be a big thing that we're going to put in front of Moody's next year for rating, and just say, we've got a plan. We know what we're going to do. We know we've got some projects, and we're going to make them fit within policies and keep ourselves healthy. So.
Yes, Corey.
Mike, what was our growth rate in kind of the bad years in 08?
I don't remember. Lisa, do you remember, Lisa?
I wasn't here, so I don't remember.
All right, so this is where I come in again.
Dave to the rescue.
So I don't have 08, but 2009 compared to 2008 went down 0.46%. 2010 went down 0.55%. And really, we didn't have anything good happen until 2014, which we went up 5.75%. So you basically 2009 through 2013, you had negative growth.
I mean, typically what happens for us, Corey, is that if a recession happens in 21, we're gonna feel it really in like 23 and 24. There's a lag in it where the private sector really feels, and then the private sector starts to recover, and then we're still lagging behind. So.
Yes, Amanda.
Yeah, just one more, a little more specific too. Since earlier, David brought up the wastewater treatment plant expense. Are we are borrowing for some of that? I thought that the sewer payments were going to increase to pay for a good chunk of that.
Yes, no. I mean,
Okay.
that's what we'll be looking at. I'm sorry, Dave, this is Jeff Rao with the Village Public Works. Yeah, I mean, our rate structure will be taking some of that into account, but it won't generate $10 million over the next few years. And I was going to ask Dave, I was looking on your chart there, you go down several sheets. I didn't see the wastewater, the $10 million really isn't even in that one plan, is it?
So if you go to that first scenario where the outstanding debt really blows up the debt capacity.
The don't do scenario.
Yep.
Yeah.
Page.
There it is.
So 2025 is the year that debt would start getting paid.
Yeah.
And so that's really where we're climbing up.
Yeah.
If we were to put that in the GO. Actually, the big spike, the 2024 is really uphill. Now you can't see my mouse, but you really go up fast in 2024 from 2023. That's that $11 million that's in the plan right now.
And Moody doesn't look at debt any different. Like if it's if we do like a clean water fund loan or something like that, that would still qualify and count as the same, correct?
Well, the Clean Water Fund loan, you have the option of doing it GO versus revenue. And so, I mean, as far as, if your coverage is good, I mean, because that's a big thing with a utility. If you've got coverage that exceeds what your minimums are and far exceeds that, would be even better. They won't look at that too badly. And the other thing would be the other thing that they really look at is your liquidity. So, I mean, as long as you're hitting coverage and you've got good liquidity in the utility, I think that it probably takes the burden off of how the general debt looks.
Right. And so to Amanda's point, and one of the things I know our engineers are looking at is how we might structure our rates going forward to help build up our finance. I mean, the utility's in a very strong financial position right now anyways, but in order to kind of start putting funds aside for that can help really offset some of that for the future, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I think John Cameron will be doing the utility part of the financial management plan, and he'll definitely give you kind of you ought to be doing the 3%ers as much as possible, and then he'll show you the years where the capital probably makes you need more of a conventional rate study. So
don't tell him we haven't raised rates in like 10 years.
Well, then he's going to have a lot of news for you, isn't he?
No, we're addressing that. That's one of the major things we're addressing.
Okay.
So this is Jeannie. I'll weigh in a little bit. So I think, Mike, what you wanted us to start thinking about tonight was thinking about setting a policy for that 50% or 75%. Just start thinking about that, right?
Yeah, because that will then generate the tax rate policy.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's what I would do. I would challenge the board to think about it a little bit differently. So I, as a business owner, I tend to think of return on investment. And instead of limits, I tend to think, how can I grow my business? Mm-hmm. So if I'm thinking about the village, I'm thinking, what projects should I be prioritizing and perhaps spending more money on to get more people to build houses here and pick Oregon to live? So instead of limiting debt, I'm looking at growing that growth number, which right now is 6.95%. I'm looking at, how do we get that to 8? Okay. So here are the things that in my mind grow Oregon. We finished JC Park. If we can get a tournament level baseball field parked or built at JC Park and get more soccer fields, more playing fields. We get more tournaments in this town. We've all seen the kind of revenue that sporting tournaments bring to this town. It fills our hotel, fills our restaurants. So JC Park to me would be worth like borrowing more money more quickly for if I'm doing return on investment. The second one would be the library. And, you know, a year ago, I might not have thought that, but what COVID has taught me, I have a lot of people sitting in my parking lot at Firefly using my Wi-Fi after hours. Do you know why? Because they don't have an internet connection at their home that's fast enough for their kids to do their homework. So after we get out of COVID, we need to have, in my opinion, an absolute state-of-the-art library facility that levels the playing field so that anybody of any age, of any income level can succeed in Oregon. So I would encourage this board to start thinking about in 2021 or 22, whenever we're going to borrow money for the library, to add to that number. And I challenge us to think about changing that number from 6 million to 7.5. And I'm just going to throw that out there. And I would challenge this board to start thinking about borrowing money sooner to get JC Park moving along. Which I guess goes and flies in the face of everything that we've talked about tonight. But if you're talking about growing your community and that 6.95%, let's face it, that's the number that drives what we can borrow, what we can spend. I vote, let's hit that number. So that's my spiel of thinking about government a little bit differently.
And if I didn't say at the beginning, I should have said this more clearly. I think we're proposing that we do the projects identified in the CIP in 21 and 22, which would include the library and JC Park West.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying let's spend more money on both JC Park and the library to get them moving
to get them done
faster.
Okay.
So we can finish them faster and get those people who are shopping the suburbs of Dane County.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, we have not, if not the best, maybe the second or third best school system right now in Dane County. Let's get these people into our village. I mean, I sound like I'm like some sort of real estate developer, but I'm really looking at that. How can I build that 6.95% number?
Yeah.
So I can borrow more money to keep building my community.
Well, and then one of your projects that you've been promoting the last couple of years is the business park, the new business park. We should not lose sight of that. We should, because I mean, we get rapid assessed value or equalized value increases by doing the business park. So,
So I guess my closing statement is I would urge the board to not get hung up on picking 50%, 60%, 75%. I would encourage the board to set a policy that we are fiscally responsible, but when opportunities come to us, to not have to say no because, oh, well, that puts us at 51%. So now we have to say no. That's ridiculous from a business standpoint.
Yeah, and what I can say to that is that you always have the ability when a project comes along to say that you're going to exceed that policy, and because it's a priority. So like I said, it happened for our community center in Wanakee. So it wasn't like we stuck to our policy either. So I agree with what you're saying, but what you've just said to me also is it's about prioritizing what's important. So I think that's a part of this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could put it at 75% at least to have a policy on the books, and that gives you flexibility. Or you could have one that, you know, we've got some things, this is what our goal is, and that could be a way to approach it as well. So.
But I think it goes back to the discussions, Jeannie, that we were having with the board back in 16 and 17, which is not spiking the tax rate. So I mean, so somehow we got to figure out a way of doing these projects without having taxes go up. And again, I'll say it again. I mean, the reason we're sitting here talking about, you know, doing 2 community parks and 3 municipal buildings is that we're a growing community. And you're right. All those are all the types of things that will encourage people to move here. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I would also encourage us to not be afraid to increase taxes at a steady rate, so that so that we never go back to those late 90s and 2000s where we never repaired a street for 6 years in the village because God forbid we raise taxes.
Right.
That's not going to make people move here.
Right, and the reason why we have a little tax rate for the village is because we have not done these buildings, these municipal buildings other communities have done, and this is why you're going to see this. I mean, in a perfect world, this would have been spread out over a longer period of time, but I still think it was good that we have this pretty aggressive CIP because it sort of gives you the board and the residents an idea of what we need to do again in a developing community, a fast growth.
Yeah, I mean, we have to plan, and I think we're sort of behind. We're behind a little bit on these new facilities that perhaps we should have been planning for and thinking about. But I think we've had such tremendous growth in Oregon in the last 10 years that I'm not sure we knew that we needed all these things. I don't know how you all feel and live. I mean, I've lived here for 20 years, and man, I never thought 20 years ago we'd be at 10,000 people. I thought I was moving to a little bedroom community outside Madison. And I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. Everyone has discovered that Oregon is the place to be. We just got to keep them building houses so we get some more new net growth.
So Jeannie, just a comment. I just want to agree with both of you on both the JC Park, and we have lagged behind on the new parks, but you mentioned about the building that that growth. I think the library does that too, and you mentioned that. People are going to come here for that library, and that's going to continue to bring people, and that's going to help our growth. And I think that's the way to sort of look at it, really.
Yeah, and I think Wanakee has, Dave, you're from Wanakee. I think that Wanakee has figured that out too. That a library is no longer just a library; it's a community meeting space
for everybody.
Right? It's for everybody. Lots of things are going to happen there, and I don't want this board to put off breaking ground in 21 because we're $1 million short. I'd really challenge us to see if we can find that money and really honor this village, honor the people in this village that have pulled up $2 million out of their wallets already for fundraising. So yes, Amanda.
We're doing everything we can to raise.
I know. Yeah. Yes, Amanda.
Yeah. I was just going to say too, I want us to keep an eye on sustainability for these new buildings, because even though the upfront costs are higher, they save money in the long run. So again, return on investment. I'm not afraid to spend more upfront within reason to fuel that growth. And if we want to be seen as an up and coming community, we need to look at sustainability, because other people are. They want to know that they're moving to a community that is responsible with the earth. So that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think our school district is very much a leader in that. You know, the new Forest Edge Elementary it's like 0% on the grid. And it may be in Fitchburg, but it's in the Oregon School District. So I think the precedent has been set for Oregon to be that leader. Yes, Jenna.
I'm just going to echo actually both what you and Amanda said, that I agree that we need to be thinking about what our return on investment is. And I agree that sustainability is 100% a part of that, because I think our community demands it. And as we look to the future and what our kids are going to be inheriting from us, they also demand it. So yeah, absolutely.
Other thoughts? Yes, Mr. Horton.
I echo, a lot of what everyone says about, sustainability. And, I think we are behind on a lot of the amenities, the park and the library and things like that. So I think a lot of what we're doing now is catching up. I am a little bit more, fiscally conservative. I want to look at each of these decisions to make sure that what we're spending, taxpayers' dollars on, they want today and they can afford. So, I think our job is to, really vet those projects to make sure that that's serving all of our existing residents. While, I do recognize growth presents us with some additional opportunities in the future, we need to make sure that our current residents can also live with, what it takes to get there as well. So I want to, take, I guess, a conservative approach. And ultimately, my thoughts on this debt policy, I'm going to look at every individual project on its own merits. So, like David mentioned, if we have a project that, is really worth it and everybody, is on board and wants to do it, I don't think our debt policy is going to stand in the way of keeping us from doing that. So I think, it's a good thing to have a debt policy to, I think that more looks at the side of what are the residents willing to support to, as far as their taxes. But again, I think we'll need to look at each project and decide if we're going to move forward regardless of the debt policy. Maybe we have room in the debt policy, but the project isn't, worth spending the money on. I think it can go either way. So, I think we will need to plan for this, but, I think ultimately the flexibility that you're looking for, Jeannie, to fund good projects that our community wants, I think we're going to have regardless of what we do with the debt policy.
Okay. Thank you. Oh yes, Mr. Stitch, go ahead.
Hey guys, thank you all very much. I really appreciate all your comments because it I just love listening to the ideas that are coming forward. But I was wondering, if we were asked as a board to try to set a debt policy, I try to keep things very simple in my life for understanding purposes. And I'm wondering, if we chose a 50% or a 75%, is there like and I know here on the screen we see a tax rate policy that says we'll come back to you with a model that shows how the updated project schedule could impact the debt service. But if I were to say we set a 50% tax, 50% debt limit, does that change the tax rate that we could see in the village? If I said 50% or if I said 75%, is there a scheduled tax rate increase because of those two different debt limits?
Well, I would say that if you were to take on more debt, and if we were to do it in the aggressive nature that your CIP is right now, you're probably going to be upwards about $3 per thousand. So I would say, the more your debt rate or your debt capacity is, probably the higher the tax rate we're going to fit more into it.
So that could potentially increase taxes at a faster rate if we set it at a higher rate, 75% as opposed to 50%.
So, the one that I showed you, I think was the one where we fit it to. So the one that let's see what page it would be, page 9 of this, I think, where, we kind of touched the 75% line. So in that version, if the projects came on that fit that 75% version, which I think is the whole 5-year plan, we had a rate going up to just about $3 per thousand in the year following that last borrowing of projects.
6 o'clock.
So, I mean, if we had to squash projects and push them forward, we wouldn't have as much debt payments because of that. So that's kind of, I would say that's probably a decent, if you're eyeballing this, that's probably where we probably start the tax rate policy at, is somewhere around $3 or $2.90 or something like that. We might be able to get it down a little lower if we were using a 75% policy. And maybe with type of growth that you have and the amenities that a growing community would love to have, maybe 75% is just fine. Like I said, Stoughton's at 80. So they have the opportunity to bring it down, but they had a lot of projects going on that occurred, and they were using GO debt for some of their TIF work. And I think that they've kind of done what you've done, more so in using the municipal revenue obligation to get that debt borrowing off of your books and onto the developer instead. So you have some opportunities with that too.
Thank you.
Excellent. So Mike, what are you looking for from us tonight?
It seems like maybe we should do is run it at 50 and 75%, because because I think 50 is obviously the more conservative. You're gonna have less of a tax rate increase, and then the 75% is going to have a higher tax increase, but it's going to show you that you're going to be able to do a lot more of the projects, and then we could bring that back to the board. I mean, I will tell you, I'm looking on page 12, following up on Luke's question, in 2023, with that $3 million there, that's the West Side Park, basically. And what staff has been talking about for the last 2 or 3 years, as an example, is that we wanted to do Highlands and Netherwood, which is done. And we'll talk about that next Monday, that actually we're fortunate that debt service at this point is not going to hit the levy. We have enough impact fees to pay for that in 21. But, we should do JC Park West, and then it'd be nice to do the West Side Park to get all these parks done over the next couple of years, and really sort of take some of the pressure off people, if I can use a word, complaining about not having enough fields to use. I mean, it'd be nice to get that behind the village. And so it'd be interesting to look at, if we did a 75% debt limit, if we could then, think about doing that park in 23. And I will say the other thing that Lisa and I've talked about is, if we keep growing, we're going to be generating park impact fees. And so maybe we could actually end up using some more impact fees to lessen the debt we have to borrow for the park. And the other possibility is that maybe we don't do the entire park, maybe we do it in phases. But I do think there's going to be a real benefit to try to fit that project in. Just speaking, if I had to pick a project that I hate to really push out, I would like to do that. I mean, and this is after doing the projects in 21 and 22. So it's a long answer to a short question. I think I'd like to see us run it at 50 and 75%, and then bring that back to the board to look at.
Yes, Corey.
Mike and David, I think our board's questions are going to be more focused on what does the 50 and 75% mean as far as what projects do we need to cut.
I agree.
Rather than an arbitrary number. And, to me, the big number and the big question mark that as much as we need a village hall, that's kind of what's causing the big spike at the end there. I know we need a village hall desperately, just from a condition standpoint, but is it possible to spread that out and have that, over a couple more years to keep the spike from happening as bad?
We'd have to see how that impacts the senior center, because once the library is built, then so the original civic campus plan had a library phase 1, then senior center, then the village hall. But then the more we realize is that the senior center has to move out of their building, and they were going to come into this current village hall. We thought there's no way we're both going to be able to stay in here. So this is why we thought I was build a village hall first. So we'd have to think that through a little bit, Corey, to figure out that's going to actually even delay the senior center even more. But I understand your point. I agree. And that's why I'm bringing up that $3 million. I wanted the board to realize that when I look at that is the West Side Park that's sort of hanging out there in that $3 million mark. So we could do that. We could look at the debt capacity policy, but then we could do a better job of identifying which projects, the big projects, are being pushed out. But honestly, I can't tell you that I'm looking at page that's in front of you here. That's the West Side Park. You're right, Corey. The next year in 24 is the village hall. I don't know what 24 is, but and then in 25 is the new senior center.
24 is the senior center, or 24.
The 20.
Okay.
I don't know what that. I know what makes up the 620. What would be that? What would be being delayed there? But I mean, it's easy. It's the West Side Park, the village hall, and the senior center are the big numbers there in that line.
Yeah, I think the reason that I took 620 out of there is because it was pretty obvious what had to come out of the 24 notes.
Yeah.
So I think I arbitrarily took it out of the bond side, but it could have all come out of the notes.
Gotcha.
So my question would be, is there, do we want to go through the exercise of doing the 50 and 75%? Or is there any way that we can even do all these projects at 50%? Should we just run them at 75 and see what the impact is? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, this goes back, I'm sorry to keep going back. This goes back to that whole discussion that Lisa and I brought up in 16 and 17 about just being concerned with spiking, and I hate using that term, but I should say increasing the tax rate too quickly.
Yeah.
And when Jim Mann was here from Elders, he kept talking about feathering the tax rate, you know, and you know, it's almost like maybe we should be focusing a little bit more on the tax rate than the debt capacity, and trying to, you know, maybe if we take it and move every project out a year, what does that what does that do to the tax rate? You know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Pardon?
I said that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, let's move it.
I mean, tax rate.
I mean, you know, Lisa and I talk about when you do these CIPs, once you go out 2 to 3 years past that, things change.
Mhm.
We get a surprise that we're going to all of a sudden build a storage building at the full workshop. I mean, you know, I mean, you get surprise projects. So, I mean, that's what we're saying. Just sort of worry about at this point doing the projects in 21 and 22. And, you know, maybe that's, I don't know what Lisa and Dave thinks about that. Maybe we should try starting in 23, maybe moving some of the projects out and trying to get the tax rate. Maybe start from that side versus the debt capacity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say Jenna and Amanda both have thoughts.
Oh, sorry.
Do you guys want to talk first?
I'll go. I guess I like the idea of, I think we do need to keep our eye on the tax rate, because I think as we continue to talk about affordable housing, it's not just bringing in housing that's more affordable for people, but keeping the housing that's here as affordable as we can, right? So although I do 100% also agree that when we're looking at borrowing, we need to make sure that we're getting a return that needs to be an investment that's going to help grow this community. We also need to make sure that we're not pricing the majority of people out of that. So
yep,
for sure.
And I was,
go ahead, Amanda.
I was just going to say too, the wastewater treatment plant, while there are some repairs and things that need to happen immediately, I don't know if delaying that a year or two would allow us to raise the sewer rates in the meantime and allow us to accumulate more upfront money to pay for it later. That might be an option.
Possibly, yes.
yeah. So, oh, Lisa, Lisa, do you have a comment about this? And you're going to say something.
I was just going to say that if we're going to do the debt capacity, I mean, you can do it at 75, but with a thought in the back of our head that we never really want to reach that 75%. And then in the meantime, you know, see what it looks like in incremental, maybe certain like 5%, like how much the rate would go up if we were to back off this dollar amount versus going to the 75%, what we would have to move around, the projects we would have to move around to stay like at a level rate for debt, something along that line.
Yep. Yep. I have to agree. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I think we were consistent back 5 or 6 years ago, and I think we're saying the same thing, that I think we should be trying to do these projects, but we can't tax people out of their houses, and that goes to that discussion about the tax rate. Yep, I agree. Yeah. Well, so maybe we should be using, maybe we should forget about the 50% and use the 75%, but then take and move the projects out, or well, mainly out, and maybe move some things around, and then see what happens to the tax rate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing that'll save us the most then too will be our growth rate.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Any question?
Yes, go ahead.
So Mike, is JC Park here in these figures or not?
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
the Jeannie brought up the library. We have 6 million.
Yep.
Would it do anything? I mean, should we, if we have to increase it, do we do anything now? Or Jeannie said another 1.5, or do we just wait?
Well, if you do that, then and obviously it adds to the
Yeah.
you know the future
We need to
years.
see what that does by adding that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll ask Dave to do that. Yeah.
All right.
So it's so Jeannie, to answer your question, or whoever asked me that question, I think it makes sense to I think we should be using the 75% as the guide, and then maybe let Lisa and me work with Dave to try to then take some of the projects in the outer years to see what happens to the rate. If we have to push like the Village Hall out a year, so what does that do? And yeah. Yep. And then I think we should add that extra money in for the library and then see what happens to that as well, so that people have an understanding about that. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Village Hall people.
Well, the thing that happens though is if the village hall doesn't move, the senior center doesn't move either.
That was the point I was trying to make.
So that's the part we've struggled with the most, is the senior center really needs a place, but
yep.
in order to do that, we have to go.
Yeah, we have to get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jenna.
For the modeling purposes, how much were we going to add to the library?
My recommendation is 1.5 million. And I mean, that's just a number I'm putting out there. I think that'll get us pretty close to 10. And that was the goal, to break ground in 21. That was the minimum that we needed to have. And I know that the library board has talked about, continuing fundraising. Fundraising is never going to end. The building's going to be up for 20 years and we're still going to be asking for money.
The one thing that also will come play with the library is that we just updated the library impact fee, but we'll have a brand new impact fee that will help pay for some of the debt service going forward as well on the new building. So once the building is built, we rehire Laura from Matt's office to help us do a update on the impact fee.
So in addition to that, we're starting to work on in-kind at some point too, and that could be some substantial money, like we're doing with JC Park too.
Yep.
All right, does that give you enough direction for this agenda item, Mike?
It does. Thank you. It was a good discussion. Dave, good job, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you, Dave, for all your time tonight. Hey, look, have a good meeting. You still got to talk for an hour and 15 minutes.
I know, but I didn't do all the talking.
True, that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The discussion. Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dave.
Oh, you're right. It was an hour and 15. Holy cow.
That's important though, because that's planning the future of our community. So that's worth spending time on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on. So we don't have any minutes to approve. Number 5, and cross that off. Number 6 is approval of November 9th, 2020 vouchers. Tonight we have vouchers in the total of $2,342,528.62 in front of us for approval. So would someone like to make a motion to get that on the table, please?
I'll move, Jeannie.
All right, so a motion by Glish, second by Jacobson. What questions do we have for Lisa?
I have one, Jeannie. This is for Jeff, I think. Jeff, 2707 is the asphalt sealers. I think I know the answer. This is just that experimental asphalt that we were trying on the bike path. Is that correct?
Yeah, was that for Farner asphalt for $9,700?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was that part of the path that we were
testing. That's what I thought. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? And I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Burton,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Stitch,
Yes.
and Glish.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That passes. Item number 7, proclamations and announcements, board comments. What board comments do we have for tonight? Yes, Amanda.
I know this is going to be talked about later too, but just from me personally, thank you to all, like Peggy and Candy and Joy and everybody for the election, because I worked the polls and it was really fantastic. So thank you.
Yep, good job.
Yes, here. Other board comments. I don't know if this is on the agenda, but I would throw out that the library is having their next big fundraiser is this coming Saturday. It's the Roaring 20s virtual library gala, and there's an online silent auction, so you should go check those things out. You can attend for free. And Bob Lindmeier's the MC. There's going to be a costume contest. There's time to socialize at our tables, which are really breakout rooms. I love Zoom. It's so much fun. So kudos to the library team for getting
over
great.
150 auction items.
Oh yeah.
Available, and you can bid now.
Yeah, so that's my plug for that. Other board comments? All right, then I would go to, under proclamations and announcements, Jeff has his very own agenda item called update regarding leaf collection. Take it away, Jeff.
Yeah, I should do that.
Breaking news.
Actually, no, we continue to work on the leaf collection. I sent out 2 crews today, pulled some of the old equipment out of the shed, and so we had two active crews and authorized some overtime pay today to work as long as they could today, just before the weather moves in. So we had such great weather over the weekend. A lot of people were out raking, so we had a lot of leaves in the village, and they'll continue to go around. I mean, we just keep going around and around and around until either we run out of weather or run out of good weather or run out of leaves to do. So we'll continue to get after it. Our new truck is just phenomenal. And I actually I'm honestly getting, I'm not making this up, 1 to 2 comments a day positive towards leaf collection. So that's a huge improvement to many complaints of just, it was always just the speed at which we could get around town in the village, and that's improved so much. So we thank people for their patience if they're listening, and we will get around to it. The only thing I was going to mention, and this is something every year we deal with, people will put sticks and brush and everything else in the leaf piles, and we can't pick that stuff up. So if people want to know why their leaves aren't getting picked up, sometimes it's because they put brush and stuff in with it. Other times is they park their car right in front of the pile. So they can help us out a lot by just doing some simple things and just keeping it as leaves and stuff.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Hey, Jeff, this is Luke. 2 village residents stopped by my place this weekend while I was raking my butt off, and also commented on your team's great work and how wonderful your new truck is. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's funny. It's like I love watching garbage trucks too, because I just watch them how they automate. I love.
Oh, did we just lose Jeff?
Cut Jeff off, bitch.
Cut off.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
I'm just not with me this time. That's how we see.
And he wasn't even asking for money. That's weird.
Oh. Or telling us he sold something without.
Oh, that's right. Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way. Yeah. So did we lose him?
Yeah, I think he got so excited he hit the disconnect button.
Yeah. We stroked his ego too much. I'm sure he'll be back.
Okay, well, until Jeff gets back,
yeah,
and we can continue complimenting him. Let's see. Under staff comments, we have a whole bunch of upcoming meetings on there. Anything you want to highlight there?
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. I do want to mention that Elise and I decided on Thursday is into next year already, January 14, 2021, we're going to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to review the West Side Parks concept plan. And we were going to do that at the board level. We thought, the Planning Commission should see, and we thought that's a good day, a Thursday night, that hopefully you can be there. And if for some reason board members want to also see it at a board meeting, we can also do that as well. But hopefully you can attend the joint meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
Where is West Side Park?
It's the land that we bought back from school. Are you
thank
kidding,
you,
Amanda?
Yeah, no, I just wasn't sure about I didn't know what we were calling it officially. And I'm like, obviously it's on the west side, but like where I meant. Okay.
Along Alpine Parkway.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
You know what you should do, Amanda? You should donate a bunch of money so that we can name it after you. And from now on, we could call it the Peterson Park. Just saying. That's always an option.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right. I can't believe you haven't gotten Jeff back yet. Unbelievable. I don't know. He must be having serious technical problems.
Yeah.
Oh, there he comes.
I just let him back.
Just let him back in.
Oh, buddy, you're back.
I'm sorry, when I was talking and I saw I had that reboot now or reboot later.
Oh, you did that.
Oh, no.
And I thought I clicked the right one.
Oh, Jeff. Well, we said lots of good things while you were gone.
Excellent.
I'm sure they'll be in the minutes.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
All right. Okay, so we are moving on. This is item 8, communication and miscellaneous business. So first up, item A. This is an update regarding Lake Stone's tax increment financing request for Janesville Street Affordable Housing Project. And we have a clarification from the October 19th board meeting. No upfront TIF payment. This will be a pay-as-you-go TIF project. And as a note, in a pay-as-you-go TIF, the developer pays for the upfront development costs and is reimbursed for TIF eligible costs as the increment becomes available. And in other words, when the tax base increases. So Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about what changed with that?
It actually, nothing really changed. And I didn't want to put, at least I didn't want to put Brett on the spot because we both knew it was a pay-go, but I think he just misunderstood the question.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't, so then I decided, so then we ended up talking to him the next day, and then I don't think he even realized what he said. So, and Jerry Bog knows this. I called him right away and said, Jerry, Brett did reconfirm that it's a pay-go TIF. So
okay.
Yeah, everyone's on the same page. And actually, they're trying to get a WIDA submittal done. I'm sorry, a submittal to WIDA for next year. So we're actually going to try to wrap up the TIF agreement if we can this year yet. So you may actually see something from elders at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So we're moving pretty quickly on this, but it definitely is a pay-go TIF. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that makes a big difference for.
Question for Mike. Mike, this is the same thing we did for Ticey, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Ticey, the hotel,
yeah,
the apartment. Yeah.
This is our preferred method. It's the least amount of risk.
Yeah.
To taxpayers.
And the material that Brett sent to us indicated it was a pay-go, and he just misunderstood the question at the meeting. So we're all on the same page now.
Good.
He also has a lot of projects in the works in a lot of communities. So yeah. It's good to be busy.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Any questions or comments on that agenda item? Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Item B, we are continuing the 2021 budget general discussion.
I just had one thing that the tax increase on an average house went from $44.10 at this point to $44.67. And that's mainly because we finally got our final assessed value, and it was a little bit lower, so that went up a little bit. So, and then we're having a hearing next Monday. And if there's any questions that we could answer tonight on the budget the board members have, otherwise we'll go through a presentation next week at the meeting. So.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Item C, this is discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 20-34. This is the 2020 carryovers. So would someone like to make a motion that we approve this resolution to do the carryovers? A motion by Jacobson and a second by Peterson. Any questions on this one? Yes, Amanda.
Just, I was a little confused on this. We're carrying over these bills to come out of 2021 funds. Is that what's happening?
I'll let Lisa explain it.
Isn't this
No.
unpaid? Yeah.
These are projects that we already levied for in 2020 that we're not going to do. So we're carrying the already levied money forward as a continuing appropriation so that we don't levy for it again.
Okay, gotcha.
And I would say 90% of these are in the budget you have that you saw last month. I think Lisa and I added, what did we add? I think we added, training. I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
We added the 5,000 for the training for the PD and 5,000 for the crossing guards, bringing that forward.
And I'll tell you, we're doing this to stay under the property tax cap that we've talked about at the budget meeting, but also trying to position the budget to be in better shape to qualify for expenditure restraint going forward as well. So it's and also trying to not to double levy. We already levy for these things. Well, why levy again for it? So, right, Lisa?
Correct.
Right.
All right, further other questions on this motion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, item D, November 3rd presidential election. A big thank you to our dedicated election workers and village staff who worked the very busy November 3rd presidential election that went into the wee hours of November 4th for election workers and for staff. So thank you for all of your hard work. Mike, I've had questions from constituents for if there's a recount in Wisconsin, that still happens at the county level, right? Do our staff have to put in hours for a recount?
Right, Peggy? I'll let Peggy address that.
Okay.
Yes, we've done a recount before, and I guess it might be a little different due to a pandemic, but what has happened in the past is that we have taken our ballots and all of our paperwork up to the county, but we have been there, me, Candy, Joy, we would be there with our chief inspectors. So we would bring in hours up there as well.
Okay.
So, question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Peggy, 90% turnout. How does that compare? That's pretty darn good. How does that compare to other surrounding? I know we tend to be high.
You know what? Honestly, I haven't looked at surrounding communities, but I would have to believe that everybody was probably pretty high considering the election.
Well, we ought to be proud of that. That's great.
So I can answer that a little bit, not with communities, but Madison was 75% and Dane County was around 80. So we
beat go Oregon.
Both of those. Yeah. I had a question for you, Peggy, though. Is 90% turnout for the Village of Oregon a record? Like, do you know if we keep track of that?
Well, 16 was 84%. So
we've been pretty close to 90. I don't remember if we have gone over this number that we've had now, but one of the numbers that strikes me is the percentage of returned absentee ballots at 98%. I don't think that we've ever seen a number that high.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead. Jenna, yeah.
Yeah, that number stuck out to me too, Lisa. If memory serves me, and it doesn't always. I thought for the primary in August that absentee turnout was like, I don't know, 2/3 or 75%. Like it seemed a bit lower, and so I was really, really surprised and excited about that 98% number.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And one more thing I have to point out that Madison had probably, I want to say 6,000 ballots, absentee ballots that ended up not being counted because it was missing information on their envelopes and things. And we're very lucky that we have a great clerks here that as the ballots were coming in, you guys were calling voters and saying, you know, hey, you're missing a signature. Can you come in and sign this so your vote will count? And because you did that as you went along, we didn't have numbers like that. I mean, there were, I don't even know how many, if you even track that, how many people, how many absentee ballots didn't count because of missing information. But
I'm not sure if it was tracked how many people were called or not, but I do know that Candy and Joy were doing that all the way through. So yes, that I think made a tremendous difference in those numbers.
Yeah.
yeah.
If I may, I do want to say a thank you myself to our poll workers, our chief inspectors, Beth Cox and her volunteers, the department heads, the village hall staff. The presidential election was truly a team effort. The clerk department is so appreciative of the PD's help with security and parking, Public Works help with signage and barricades, the senior center offering to use their tents if there was inclement weather, poll workers, new and old, working in place of many senior poll workers unable to because of compromised immune systems. And lastly, the backbone of our election, our village hall staff, Candy, Joy, Sue, Melissa, John, Elise, Mike, Jeff, and Lisa. That saying is, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to run an election, and we could not have done that without everyone's help. So thank you.
Very well said. Thank you, Peggy. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and then keeping going with the election. We want to thank Chief Pagenkoff and the police officers who provide security. As Peggy said, thank you, Chief, for doing that. We appreciate it. And then in the packet, we have the review of the election results. So those are the official results for the 2020 election. And we also have the results for 2016 for comparison purposes. So anyone watching in the public, that's some interesting reading and comparison if you want to, if you're a numbers geek. I found it to be pretty interesting. All right, moving on to item E, status of village administrator search. So we have 3 items here. Number 1, the Village of Oregon new village administrator assessment. Board members, please email your completed forms to Kevin Brunner by Monday, November 23rd. Do we have forms, Mike?
The forms in the packet. I also sent an email out on Friday morning to everyone.
Oh no, okay, I better check that.
Yeah, I can send you another one if you need it, Jeannie, if you can't find it.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any questions on that one? All right, item 2, community members who wish to provide comments regarding the administrator's search should feel free to contact Kevin Brunner, and his email is listed as well as his phone number in our packet. I want to make this sure this is a transparent process. And then number 3, at the December 7th board meeting, we will have a discussion with Kevin Brunner, the village board, to finalize the text announcement, the recruitment selection schedule, and the assessment center process. So things are moving ahead. That's always good.
Yep.
Any questions on any of those items from board members? All right. Item F, this is the 2020 list of village employees being recognized for their 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years of service with the village. I thought this was a pretty impressive list. I think this speaks very well of our leadership and our department heads that people want to keep working here for longevity. So, and Mike, do you want to talk? Usually we do a luncheon, but this year you're doing something a little bit different to celebrate these. Yeah, because of COVID, each department head have their individual lunches, and I just told them last week that if they're nervous about having them in November, just push it off until you're more comfortable. And I think one of it is already, we'll delay it.
And we'll just, if we have to, we'll just carry the money forward just to make sure that people feel comfortable having a lunch when it's safer, or when it's safe, they feel.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We're not going to obviously have our normal lunch with everyone. We can't do that this year.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Item G, we have a discussion of Trustee Glitch's letter of support for Anderson Park. Randy or Mike, do you want to talk about this?
Oh, I can do it, Mike. I'll just start. So I happen to be at Anderson Park talking to Roe Parker, and they have some new gardens, and they wanted to write a grant for $1,100 for a new rototiller for their gardens, and they asked if I could do a letter of support, and I asked Mike if that was okay as a trustee, and he said he thought it would be fine, but just to let the rest of the board know that I had done that on behalf of the village.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. Yep. Anyone else have a different opinion? All right. Yeah, thank you, Randy, for doing that.
You're welcome.
I don't know if you noticed by Anderson Park there, they actually have some of the base done for the bike trail that's going to go along Union Road. So that, I think that's definitely going to go in next year. It'd be very nice.
I'll just say, when I went, it is amazing what I was there the first time that they had a little bonfire, and I think there were 7 of us there now at that point. If you go out there now, it is amazing what they have done out there.
Yeah, it's going to be just an amazing amenity for our community.
Yep.
It's not within village limits, but man, it's right up to us. So
yeah.
I vote we advertise that puppy when we're trying to recruit new net growth.
I agree. You're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Item H is discussion of proposal from Staley Plumbing and Heating for the Senior Center HVAC system, a dual UV smart lamp. We have possible board action, and the village will be seeking reimbursement through the Routes to Recovery program. All right. Rachel or Mike, you want to talk about this?
Rachel, you want to do that, please?
Okay, so we have been looking at how to make our buildings safer, and one of those ways is to add the UV blue lights to the HVAC system. That's something that goes in with every furnace. Each unit costs $1,390. We are lucky enough to have 5 furnaces here at the senior center, so the total cost is 5 times that amount. We have been using our portable blue light that is on a cart that we move around the center a lot, and are hopeful that it makes a difference, but know that this would be an added level, a layer of protection, because virtually everyone in this building, volunteers, many of the staff, are all at high risk for coronavirus. And this will also help reduce other circulating ick, like flu and colds and all the other things that we still deal with, especially seasonally.
Excellent. That sounds like a good thing. Do you need us to approve that, Mike?
I signed off on it. I figured the board had given me the authority to do that with the COVID situation. I put it on there. If the board's comfortable with me just signing off on it, I don't think there's need for action at this point. Like I said, we're going to get it reimbursed anyways to the CARES money. So.
Okay. Thumbs up from everybody on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
And then continuing with the senior center, we have FYI repairs to the senior center's commercial dishwasher. Any questions on that?
I put it in the pack because I'm surprised that some of you didn't see it in the bills, and I realized when that type of repair cost, I wanted just the board to know that we had done that repair at the senior center. So.
Okay.
Yep.
And the county did contribute $2,500 towards that. I got that in the mail today.
Yeah, thanks. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Excellent. That's always good. Okay. Moving on, item J. This is from Chief Linsmeyer. Please see the flyer regarding smoke detectors in the Oregon Area Fire EMS District. The goal of the district is to have no one without a smoke detector in their home. So thank you to Chief for putting that flyer in our packet and raising awareness of that program. Item K, discussion and possible action regarding Bergamot Phase 4D street acceptance. We have a recommended motion to accept the street improvements, the storm sewer on site, sidewalks, and curb and gutter improvements as part of Bergamot Phase 4D. Would someone like to make that motion, please? All right, so we have a motion by Stitch and a second by Jacobson. Any questions on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item L, discussion and possible action regarding Bergamot Phase 4E, street acceptance and letter of credit reduction request. We have a recommended motion to accept the street improvements, the storm sewer on site, the sidewalks, the curb gutter improvements as part of Bergamot Phase 4E, and also allow the reduction of the letter of credit to $0. And Mike, I'm assuming that you are recommending this, correct?
Jeff is.
Jeff is, okay.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion for this. Anyone want to make this motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, so a motion by Horton and a second by Peterson. Questions on this?
So Jeannie, just one question for Jeff. Jeff, I think, is this by my curb and gutter, I think, for
Yep.
do I need to abstain? I mean, I got
No.
benefit, I got my curb and gutter redone.
No.
I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think so.
No.
I just want to make sure I'm doing everything legal.
No, you're fine, Randy.
Thank you.
All right, then. All those in favor of this motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, continuing the Bergamot train. Item M, this is discussion and possible action regarding Phase 5B. So we have a recommended motion to accept the street improvements, the storm sewer on site, sidewalks, and curb and gutter improvements as part of Bergamot Phase 5B, and then also to allow the reduction of the letter of credit to $0. Would someone like to make this motion?
So moved, Jeannie.
All right, so we have a motion by Glish and a second by Peterson. Any questions on this one? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item N, we have a discussion of possible action regarding the 2021 snow ice control program. This is always exciting, such an exciting document that Jeff puts together for us. We have a recommended motion to
Go ahead. Well,
wait. Well, let me get this on the table, Jeff, and then we'll let you talk about your snow and ice. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the snow and ice control program, which was revised October 26th, 2020?
So
I'll
moved.
make the motion.
All right,
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion by Glish and a second by Peterson. All right, Jeff.
yes. So we slave over this every year to change the dates, and but no, we do update other things as we get new equipment and new staff and new areas and that type of stuff. But this is a good document to update every year, just to remind people kind of where the priority roads in the village are. And one thing I did this year was actually go through and make this map electronic, so I'm not highlighting anymore every year. Yeah, at least if you keep going, I think you'll come across the 11/17 map. Basically, in a nutshell, I mean, we cover the main arteries very first. Primary areas, obviously, things like police and fire areas. And then, we work our way to the more minor area roads and everything like that, which would be a lot of the non-artery type roads. We're all set for this year. We had a great week last week. Obviously, no one was thinking of snow this last week, but yeah, we'll be set this year. We have equipment's in great shape and ready to go. And who knows? I haven't seen many predictions on the winter. It never seemed to pan out anyways. But we've had pretty light winters ever since I've been here. So I'm probably just dooming us right now with that statement. But people, if they have questions, this is always something that Candy and Peggy put on the website every year, the updated one, so it can kind of give an idea of what people, might see their roads plowed or not plowed in a certain time frame.
Yes, it's always depressing to see that the road that I live on is a level 4 road.
Well,
It's okay.
yeah. I thought we always make the President's Road a level 1. I thought that was.
No, I like to point out to people that the road that I live on this year was one of those roads for 3 weeks where we had like, it was ground off but not paved. So I'm like, I don't get special treatment, people. It was actually really good. It was a nice way to prove my point. So thanks, Jeff, for doing me that favor.
Yeah, and if people complain, we can always turn their driveway into a new snow storage area.
All right, so I think we need to vote on this, right?
That's correct.
Yes. All right. Are there any further questions for Jeff? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we have no report of committees. We don't have any minutes. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. We have some future agenda items on there. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Glish, second by Peterson. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank
Yep.
you.